Welcome, everybody, to this edition of Attention Talk video. I'm your host, ADHD and attention coach, 𝐓𝐇𝐈𝐒. Um, the world is kind of interesting because things just happen. Like they don't happen, then they happen like all of a sudden. So I get a call one day from a spouse asking about coaching their partner that they proclaimed was self-centered. Um, Within days, somebody I was mentor coaching um, kind of asked the same thing. Is like when you're coaching somebody who's really, really self-centered, what do you do? And then separately, I was somewhere else in a conversation. They were just talking about how a person was really self-centered. Kind of weird how things happen in threes. Anyway, the question of is as a coach, when I'm coaching somebody who's really self-centered, like what's up with that? That's quite a challenge, let me tell you. Um, when you have ADHD, self-awareness is a bit of a challenge. And it's actually self-awareness is actually pretty complicated because to be self-aware, you've got to be present. You have to stop what you're doing and you have to think about yourself. You have to reflect. Number one, reflecting is a very deep level of thinking. Stopping what you're doing and looking at yourself objectively. Um, when you're running 100 miles an hour, most don't do it. And then you have to like look at yourself objectively. Like I get a lot of people coming to me and say, I want coaching on exercise. I really, really like it, but they're not doing it. I'm like, well, if you say that you really like it, but you're not doing it, there's a conflict there. Usually what they mean is they like the benefits of exercise when it's over with, but exercise is tedious, repetitive, and boring, which is why they're not doing it, which is a whole nother coaching thing. You got to combine it with some other activity. But needless to say is the fact that they lack self-awareness is one thing. The second thing is people judge the world through the lens of their experience. So this is why a lot of you out there will go and want the neurotypicals to understand your ADHD, and they just see everything through the lens of what they do. And since ADHD is intangible, they can't conceptualize it, and so they resist. They're always looking for it to be like their experience. So you have these factors. The next factor is emotional regulation is an executive function. When you feel threatened, reflexively, people with ADHD get defensive and they put their guard up, they start fighting. And so you got this interesting cocktail when somebody shows up that you're coaching that's got ADHD, who looks at the world through their experience and is more emotional than they realize. How do you work with them to kind of help them see a lot of times what's actually getting in their way is themselves and their lack of self-awareness. Uh, what has to happen, number one, is you got to create a safe place. You got to get them relaxed. You have to get them to trust you. That's really about really understanding them and really trying to get them. If you can get that environment, what happens is they take their guard down a little bit and you can begin to have conversations about how does this serve you? How does that serve you? Or what we do is confronting limiting beliefs. So limiting beliefs is where somebody says they have to do something. There's lots of things in this world people think, but you have to do it this way when you really don't. You'd be surprised. And you have to, sometimes this takes a long period of time and the person's got to actually be in some type of pain to when it kind of get resolved. And so when you do that for a period of time, you can slowly get your nose under the tent until you have that kind of aha moment where they'll admit something that they've always been reluctant to admit out loud. When that moment that happens, you got to keep a real safe environment. Like this doesn't go anywhere. This is between the two of us to make them feel kind of comfortable with it. And then you work over kind of a period of time for them to begin to gain some self-awareness that a lot of what they do is because they like what they do, even though they just do it, even though it's impacting other people around them. When you get to this space, some will resist. They'll never cross over. I want what I want, which is what I want. It's too much work. But hopefully you get some people that can kind of cross over and they start to become somewhat empathetic. And this is where the hard decisions take place because a person usually is self-centered a lot of times because there's certain things that they want or they want it to be a certain way. And the reality of it is it's not always that way. Now, there's exceptions to that. Sometimes they can have their cake and eat it too. But it's a delicate balance. because it's very much a ADHD issue, because it's really the epicenter starts with their emotions, and it's a reflexive reaction, and it's delicate. There's some people that will never kind of cross over because they fight it so much. But needless to say, is if you are impacted with ADHD by somebody with that, the trick really is it's delicate, because if you confront them on the self-centeredness, then they get more defensive on it. You have to kind of gain some influence, and it's a slow, encouraging process. It can be done, but the idea really is you got to be clever about what you're doing. If you actually have ADHD and you've actually begun to listen to this, and then you feel like people are trying to say that you're self-centered, just number one, kudos. You're open up mind to listen to this because it spoke to you in some way, shape, or form. And your brain is such that it's seeking comfort and stuff all the time, sometimes at the expense of other people, where they're like, hey, come on, listen, you got it over here, 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 here. We need you to regulate. And there's some resistance to that. Um, I encourage you to find a therapist or coach to kind of in a I say a safe environment, kind of talk your way through that stuff a little bit to deal with the realities of it. And often, a coach and therapist can help you brainstorm on kind of how to have your cake or eat it too, or whatever. So with that, um, anyway, the point of this video was to sit there and say there's some people that are more difficult. Those that are self-centered, it's really emotionally based. And just wanted to give you an idea what the factors are. It's not done overnight. So hope this has given you pause to think. If you're new to our channel, subscribe. We have lots of videos on lots of different things with coming from different directions on insight. If you're an existing listener, can you identify with us? Do you know of somebody that's kind of self-centered? Were you able to help them, etc.? Also, we do what we do in service of you, so we appreciate any contribution if you hit the thanks button. So with that, we hope you've enjoyed this edition of Attention Dog Video. Take care.